Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How you doing today? Michael Zuber with One Rental at a Time. It is Monday morning, and that means we have the one and only Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing very well. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is kind of my spider senses are tingling. One of the things that I have done for the last decade or 15 years is continually speak at real estate meetups. They used to be in person the last year or so. They've been, Zoom calls. But the reason I do those is because I want to hear what the audience is asking, what's on the audience's mind. And over the last 9 to 12 months, I have to tell you, Airbnb has been top of mind for a lot of the audience. And I'm now starting to see behavior, I guess, that concerns me. And I just kind of paint the vision. There's a lot of kind of what I'll call green or new investors that look at Airbnb as a way to make more income than month-to-month rentals, which is what I do. Which is true if you do it right, but they're also not doing the homework. They're jumping in. I have Airbnb experts on my channel, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, and they're doing luxury lakefront, oceanfront stuff. But what the newbies seem to be doing is buying B and C class just homes in areas or in communities that may not even allow Airbnb. So I see some danger brewing in Airbnb. Because newbies think it's easy. And my experience is when newbies think something is easy, the bubble blows up and then it pops. What do you think?
Yeah, the biggest danger in Airbnb is what they call arbitrage, which really isn't even
Yeah.
arbitrage. It's master leasing where you lease a house from somebody, and then you turn around. You lease it from an owner month to month. You pay them $1,500 a month.
Yep.
Then you turn around and then short term rent it, either Airbnb, VRBO, or some other type of medium. So number one, yeah, short-term rentals are always more profitable than long-term. You can get more money short-term turnkey furnished than you
Sure.
can long-term.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more expensive to operate. And of course, that's the market I grew up in, where summer vacation homes, they were all short-term rentals. You had basically what we called the Sweet 16. You had 16 prime weeks where you made the bulk of your money. And then good properties would rent out for another 12 weeks. So you had 28 weeks a year max to 30 weeks a year that your house would rent, based on off-season rentals and where you were located and all that. So it can be a good business, but that's where people get themselves in trouble, is they're committing to leases and trying to sublease out on the back end without owning the properties, which can be good until you get downzoned, or a city decides to change its ruling allowing those rentals, or if you do it in a community where it's not approved and people think they can get away with it, or you do it in a building, a condo building where the association doesn't allow short-term rentals, and then you get caught and you're stuck in that lease. So yeah, there's a lot of roadblocks out there and landmines that people aren't aware of.
Yeah. Again, for me, a lot of social media today, and even in some of my feed, there's a lot of good operators kind of showing how they're making a killing month to month. Hey, I made $4,000 where I would have made $1,000. And what again, it's a wave. And again, I'd love to be wrong, but what I sense is this wave of new investors coming. They think it's too easy. They just read the headlines and they don't realize the work. They don't realize that location matters, right? I think Airbnb, especially, the longer you do it, location matters. So what I see happening is there's going to be a lot more supply over the next 12 to 18 months. I believe, as an economist, supply and demand is undefeated. As supply increases, that's going to drive down prices, and the best will win and the others will suffer.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, the whole Airbnb thing. So number one, what I tell people is, if you want to get into vacation rentals, short-term rentals, there's two ways to do it that are pretty much given and you won't have any issues. Number one is go to an area where that's what it's been, that's all it's been, and that's what the market is. Like these resort areas where there are rental houses, like I was at Outer Banks, North Carolina. That's all that beach, is and has been, is a place for people to come rent homes in the summer. You have your, West Coast destinations, you have your East Coast, you have your lake areas. So go to communities and areas where that's a thing, that's what it is, and that's all it is, and nobody cares because that's what you do.
Yeah.
The other side is do short-term rentals that are not vacation rentals. So you're doing executive stays, you're doing traveling medical professionals, you're doing, those types of things. That's different. And it's a short-term, maybe it's month to month, and you're just doing short-term rentals versus the Airbnb thing. And then you're not getting yourself in trouble. Now, obviously, there are communities and associations where you can't rent properties out like by the week and by the weekend and things like that, but none of them will tell you can't rent it out monthly.
Yeah,
And
30-day minimums are pretty common in HOAs.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that keeps you out of trouble. You can still get premiums, and those are a little bit easier to manage a lot of times than a vacation rental, because you're cleaning up after somebody every weekend. Your expenses are higher, a little bit more maintenance and management, but
Yeah.
in a lot of areas they can be very profitable, where you can get a lot more income for the house. Like the Smoky Mountains, you had some really good ratios there for a while, but people have woke up to that market, so that they're coming down. There were some areas on the Gulf Coast down in Florida where properties were cheap for the amount of rent you could get. But as more and more people find out about it, those yields compress. Again, the market's becoming more efficient, like you said, and cities and towns are trying to ban it in a lot of areas. They want to tax it. They want to get the income. You're competing with hotels. So areas like New York City, the hotel industry has a vested interest to stop you. So don't fight it. Do long-term or short-term executive rentals or traveling nurses or whatever. Do vacation rentals where the areas, that's what they are. So nobody's going to try to stop you. Those types of things. The key is managing multiple properties. If you're trying to manage for others, you need a license in a lot of states. So you want to watch out for that and those types of things. But it's a great business overall.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I hope, hopefully people are hearing this. I believe Airbnb and short-term rentals is a great business, as you've said, but it's a business. I'm afraid, again, I could be wrong, but my spidey senses have been pretty right about this. Again, that's why I still talk at meetups. A lot of people are coming and they think it's easy money. Anytime
that's
you think
arbitrage. That's people, reading, everybody's selling these arbitrage courses. And again, it's not arbitrage. Arbitrage is buying something low, selling it for more, rapid fire. That's arbitrage. Arbitrage is not a master lease. And that's where people are getting in trouble.
Yeah. And again, if I know people that are pushing that, right, they're going to, I know there are people that are they're renting apartments and, they rent them vacant, then they spend 10 grand or 8 grand or 6 grand furnishing it. And then they're trying to rent it out on Airbnb and VRBO. And, if you're not communicating with the original land, I mean, there's just a lot of bad behavior going on today. I think anytime you think it's easy money, whether it's stocks or it's crypto or real estate, you're going to get caught because it all takes work and it all has risks, and do your homework.
Well, crypto is one area where it has been super easy. If you were in early enough, you just buy it for pennies. It goes up to hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands, and you do absolutely nothing. You got to get out when it's time to get out.
Yeah. But again, you got to do the work, right? Again, I just, there's so many people that are believing the Instagram hype of just how easy it is. So,
yeah, Airbnb is a business. You have insurance, taxes, utilities, cleaning,
process, procedures. Yeah.
There's a lot to it, but it's relatively straightforward and can be a good business model. Now, me personally, the way I did mine, I've owned tens of millions of those properties over the years. I use professional property managers that that's what they do. They handled all the bookings, all the collections, all the repairs, maintenance, the whole 9 yards. They just sent me a check every month. That was the way I like to do it.
Just to be clear, tens of millions of dollars worth of real estate, not tens of millions of units.
Yeah.
Value, folks. Don't leave comments. He did not own 10 million units. No, it's value of the units. Okay.
And it sounds big, but I had some that were 2-3 million each.
Yeah. You don't need many of those to get up to 10
I don't
million.
think I ever had more than probably 20 at one time. And then my whole model was I would build them, get them all done. Usually they were worth more after the first year because they had 1 year of rental performance,
of course,
all that. So the most I kept them were a year or two while I was building them, stabilizing them, and selling them.
Yeah, I'm curious, since you did that for a while, and again, you are in what I would call a prime area, right? Class A, right on the beach, desirable. Mm-hmm. Did you ever notice, like maybe during the stock market crash or something, where demand suddenly fell off a cliff one season?
Well, so it was kind of the other way around. So what we saw was the .com bubble. Everybody made their money, got out and came down to the beach and started buying beach houses.
Okay. All right.
Same thing in the bull market up to prior to 2009. People were making all the money in the market and they were spending it on their beach house because that was your status symbol up in where I was at. We were a destination for New York, New Jersey, Wall Street. So how big is your beach house? That was like a status symbol.
That was a thing. Okay.
And if you weren't at the level of the Hamptons, well, then your next one was the Outer Banks, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's an easy travel destination. But after 2009, this is what's interesting is that, values took a hit down there, 08, 09 when the markets crashed and all that. but the rentals really didn't.
Okay.
Maybe 10%. You saw the rents dip about 10%, but that was economic Armageddon back then, right?
Yeah.
This time around, everything shot through the roof. Rents went through the roof because you couldn't go anywhere else. Sales have gone through the roof, and it still is down there. I mean, it's unbelievable. But most vacation destinations have experienced the same thing through the pandemic. But
Yeah.
any other stock market corrections, we never really saw anything change to the downside, but it did change to the upside when people were making a lot of money in the markets.
Yeah. And then the last question I want to ask, because again, I believe supply demand is undefeated. I think one of the things we are seeing this period is demand maybe artificially high because nobody wants to jump on a plane and go to Europe or Asia or Australia.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to get in a car and go somewhere. Is it reasonable to think that demand might be lower in a year or two? Because again, we will eventually get on planes and have international travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is difficult right now to travel internationally, and there's not a lot of flights and things like that. And until the Delta thing is behind us and everybody's open back up again, yeah, people are still traveling locally.
Mm-hmm.
All-time record occupancies pretty much
Exactly.
everywhere in the country. People are RVing. I mean, just all kinds of different things that nobody was doing before.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is cabin fever because nobody went anywhere
Yeah.
last year hardly. They did some of the beach vacations and stuff,
Yeah.
but that was limited because a lot of them were closed until like June.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
But last year was strong. This year is strong. But once the world opens back up again, absolutely, you're going to see demand drop for a lot of those. So a lot of people are going to get caught short. And again, the biggest warning is I had some guys that I was coaching into the multifamily space that they were doing Airbnb and they were doing it in New York, and they had 20 of them. And they were all master lease situations. They were on the hook for these leases, and New York banned Airbnb rentals.
Oh,
So they were stuck with all these properties that they could no longer rent, and they were on the hook for these leases. So, that's the kind of thing that can happen to you. So you got to be real careful.
very cool. This has been a lot of fun. How can people follow you, be part of your world?
GregDickerson.com. All my information, social media links are all there. GregDickerson.com.
Thanks, buddy.